and I was going to be meowing with my friend Nathan, who called in on the Skypes, but then a more important call came in. A caller with whom I haven't spoken in a long time because I blocked his phone number. But he called in on Skype, which means he might even sound better than normal. James from Arizona, you are on Peace News once again.
At 2, Derek J.
At 2, yes, even me.
Blocking my number as well.
Yeah, what's that?
I'm just calling in about the closing. What I'm afraid of is the closing of the libertarian mind, and that would be you, respectfully. But thanks for taking me on.
All right. Well, I'm open to your voice now. So what you got?
Well, speaking of contradictions, and I remember not too long ago I asked you if you should have the right to have a tank and drive it down.
And I said yes.
Right, but the cops aren't allowed to have one.
Right.
Okay, that to me is.
I say the cops are allowed to have one so long as I'm allowed to have one, but they have to pay for it, and I have to pay for mine.
Okay, I don't want either of you having them. That is my point.
Okay.
But it is.
What are you going to do to stop us?
Well, that's why I don't want you to have a tank, but we do have a military that can take you out if you have your own personal tank.
Well, I'm just saying either we all have equal rights, or there are some people who have more rights than others, and I'm uncomfortable with police having more rights.
I'm not here to talk about Orwell cliches, the brilliant man that he is. Again, I don't want our local police department.
It's not off topic. I mean, we all either have equal rights to have firearms and weapons, or we don't. And if police can have something and I can't, well, then that's wrong. If police can have something and don't have to pay for it, that's really wrong. You're making me pay for something I don't even endorse.
I asked you that question in the context of cops not having a tank, by the way. You said, yes, you should be allowed to have a tank, and it wasn't based on the fact that cops had it.
No, it's not. It's based on the fact that we all have the human right to self-defense. You can have whatever kind of self-defense you want.
Okay. I don't want you having a nuclear weapon either.
And probably I would have no use for one, but if my neighborhood association or my area, my geographical area, wanted to all chip in $1 and buy a nuclear weapon so that we're not attacked, I'd be okay with that.
So now you want to amend your remarks to amend your answer to me a while back that you only think you should have the right to drive a tank down the beautiful city of Keene, New Hampshire, if the cops have a tank. But if the cops don't have a tank, you don't have the right to.
No.
Okay.
That we all
then
have
it's a contradiction.
No, there's no contradiction here. It's completely consistent. What I'm saying is everyone has the right to human self-defense. All humans have that natural, innate right. It doesn't come from governments or anywhere else. Not your badge or whatever. So
we're talking about with what, though?
With your own money.
Okay.
Or money that you get somewhere legitimately. But when you're pointing guns at people and telling them, pay for my tank, that is not legitimate. And that's what the police do. That's why they shouldn't have one.
You have a right to have a tank just because you're loaded and I'm not. That's beautiful, Derek J. And I know that the beautiful citizens of Keene, New Hampshire, whether or not they want no tanks, no thanks, all those people that agree with you, the other people that do agree with you, would agree with me that they don't want Derek J. Horton having a tank either.
Yeah.
But that's just me, and I submit to you a super duper duper majority of your fellow citizens of the beautiful city of Keene, amongst one of them being the Keene Activist Center.
Oops, I'm sorry, James. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just wanted to add someone to the call. Are you still there with us, James? Sorry. Oh man, I did not mean to disconnect. You were on a roll there. And if we're able to reconnect, then I'll definitely let you continue with the floor. But I apologize for cutting you off. Maybe you're able to reconnect with us. I'm not really quite sure. We'll try and do a group call with you and Nathan. That's actually what I was up to. But I guess we're going to have to wait on that. Sorry about that. So hopefully, okay, we got Nathan back on. Let's see if we can get connected with Nathan. Oh, and James is calling back in. Hey, Nathan. So what would you be saying to James right now if, in response to his claims that people don't want me riding down the street in a Bearcat?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, James says people don't want me riding down the street in a Bearcat. So why wouldn't that be a problem in a libertarian society?
Well, I'm going to take a guess and surmise that if you're such a huge, raging jerk that you're going to be riding down the street with a tank, people are probably not going to want to interact with you in any way at all. And you'll quickly find yourself, I imagine, in possession of the clothes on your back, a few ramen noodle bowls, and a tank.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then what? You know, people aren't going to cooperate with me, and then I starve to death, right?
Well, hopefully one would choose rather to not starve to death and to abandon the tank than to starve to death inside a tank. But, you know, hey, look, North Korea, they spend a lot of money on weapons over there, the government does, and the people don't get a lot of food. And it's not a good state of affairs, but until they're willing to stand up and say, you know, no, this is wrong, it's just going to keep going on.
Okay, so I'm going to try and do a group call with you and James. Is that consensual?
Sure. Let's try this.
Okay.
Let's do this.
All right. So we're going to avoid talking about Japan at all costs. We're just going to get that out of the way and say, you know, James is right about everything having to do with Japan. But
Okay.
But for today, we're going to keep this on topic about tanks because police tanks must go. And are you excited to see what happened in California with the Davis City Council saying they're going to get rid of their police tank?
Yeah, because it's you kind of need someone to set the precedent when you're talking about this kind of thing. If someone doesn't go first, then it's going to be hard for other city councils to do the same thing.
Yeah, and it's a shame that this wasn't a success in Keene, New Hampshire, where we sort of got the ball rolling in 2011 with Thanks But No Tanks. There was a website dedicated to that. Unfortunately, by now it's expired. It would be nice to have a record of the things that we accomplished here in Keene, putting out propaganda and filling the seats in city council to the point where they had to be regulated by a fire marshal. So it's very, very concerning. What else? What else is on your mind tonight, Nathan? All right, let's take this call from James in Arizona. Sorry about that, James. I honestly was not trying to cut you off earlier.
I don't care. I'm not worried about it.
All right, so you're back on.
Appreciate you unblocking my number since you're the one that gave yours out, and I returned the request for callers. Anyway, but I'm calling on Skype instead.
I appreciate that.
From what I feel like I'm lost in time and space, but I would like to respond to Nate's what I did hear him say.
Okay.
I think it was a little bit in the past. I didn't say anything about you being raging or anything like that. I used no such adjectives when I was asking you if you have a right to a tank, which you said you do, and I say that in a civilized society like Keene,
last
New
10
Hampshire,
seconds. Go ahead.
you don't have. Well,
if you can't wrap it up in 10 seconds, I will hold you over, and we will come back on the other end. I appreciate your thoughts. I'm not cutting you off. It's just the clock. This is Peace News. We'll be right back. Okay, so I just muted the ads. We are still live over YouTube. If you'd like to share your thoughts now, you can do that.
Nate, can you hear me?
No, he is not connected in this call.
Oh, I should like to stick to the subject. Keene, New Hampshire, not North Korea, which ironically, in North Korea, you don't even have a right to bear arms of any kind. Only the Army does. And I'm not afraid of the Army that is heavily militarized in the United States of America and has many tanks, and they're not rolling down the beautiful city of Keene, New Hampshire, are they? Putting their tanks at anybody, are they?
We should count our blessings for that. You know, you might like to know that I shared that statistic that you shared with me on the show earlier. My dad asked me while I was visiting over the weekend, what is something you learned doing your program? And something that I shared with him was that you brought up that the U.S. doesn't have the biggest prison population in the world. In fact, that would be North Korea with 23 million. And I thought that was a poignant remark and one worth remembering. So I shared that with him.
And don't ever forget, on the other side of the 38th parallel on the south side, there are 30,000 American troops that have been there since my dad left and came back to America and married my mom in 1955. And guess what?
And they're keeping South Korea free, aren't they?
South Korea is one of the coolest places on earth you could ever go to visit.
What would South Korea do without your dad and those troops?
They would have been overrun by. They would have been overrun by.
They'd be living in caves, right? Without the Americans coming in and being the police of the world, oh my gosh, the whole world would be in chaos.
By the way, Derek J., I know you don't remember this, but why would you even know? It was a United Nations operation led by the United States of America, of course, because we were the world's.
Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
You don't. That's fascinating. Then why did you bring up, by the way, why did you bring up again the ISIS thing at the beginning of your show?
Because it's
If you don't
news.
care, okay, so it's okay to opine about it, but then you don't really care about them anyway. So why even talk about it? Why not just talk about Keene, New Hampshire then?
I think my listeners care. I have a good pulse for what people like to listen to.
Okay, so you can talk about it, but then when I challenge you about what to do about it, you say who cares? And by the way, your
You
response
didn't challenge me about what to do about it.
Yes, I did.
When?
I asked you what would you do about ISIS. And
Oh,
you
right,
came
and
up
I
with-
said it's none of my business.
Right, which is not an answer. And then you went on to, well, if they all believed in peaceful talk and an eye for an eye just leads the world to be all blind.
Yeah.
See, that's Pollyannish, progressive, pipe-smoking, dope idiocy, literally. It doesn't do anybody that's...
Now you're just calling names. That's not an argument.
I don't need to call
That's
it
not an
names.
argument.
I didn't call you a name. I labeled your argument as a pipe dream, and it is. You're projecting like all good progressives do. They have this mythical...
This is weak. This is not an argument. Make an argument.
I'm talking about your argument, which is weak.
You're just calling it names. That's not an argument. Calling an argument
just-
weak is not an argument.
You just said it's weak, and now when I use it's weak, it's not an argument. Okay, you're...
I'm
then let me-
just pointing out that it's not an argument to say that argument's
then.
weak. Okay.
Okay, not that you're aware of, speaking of ISIS, Derek J., not that you care, even though you brought up ISIS. Like 500,000 people have fled their homes in Iraq since ISIS, men in black, moved into town, hordes of invaders
Yeah.
that are... so the brown people are that you call them, I don't, that are entirely familiar with such counterculture clubbers, may I say, Derek J.?
15
No,
seconds till we come back.
So-called peaceful resistance to barbarians only gets you killed, literally. If you go, hey, dude, now you're going to get killed by a guy dressed in black with eye slits and an AK-47. You're going to
Okay,
get waxed.
We're back.
And
James, go ahead. What's on your mind?
Nathan, I wasn't objecting to Derek J. not having a right to drive a tank down the lovely main street of beautiful city of Keene, New Hampshire, because he was maybe because he's raging against the machine. I'm not worried about that. Just as I don't know what North Korea has to do with the conversation about one having the right to bear a tank in the beautiful city of Keene, New Hampshire. Can you help me out with those comments?
I'm afraid Nathan is not on the line with us. I would love for us to have some crosstalk, but I don't have that.
Okay,
set up.
then it's as much commentary it is as a question to him, what you said about it on the air.
Sure.
Because I don't know where North Korea came into this conversation. And I wanted to ask about, again, the Keene Activities Center Person of the Year, James Cleveland.
Yes.
May I remind you, mocked my argument that he might get shot that one night at the stakeout because
Yes, he
said he said the house was surrounded by a SWAT team and they even had a bear cat. So what a fool am I to think that he would get shot because the cops are beyond and they have a bear cat.
I don't think he was saying that it was unreasonable to think he might be shot. I think he was saying he doesn't care, that he is willing to take that risk as a member of the media. He thinks it's important enough to get that video.
Very good of you to remember that keen part of his argument. But the fact of the matter is that if the cops, he did get shot, he may not care if he was dead and gone, but there'd be plenty of other people that would.
Yep.
And Keene, the lovely city of Keene, New Hampshire, and the taxpayers and the state taxpayers
What about him?
will be the ones having to pay the bill
For what?
him getting
For a funeral? Get real. No, he takes full responsibility for his own actions. He said that in the episode, and he said that day. It's all on video.
Very good. But if he were dead and gone, what he takes full responsibility for doesn't matter anymore.
For paying for his own funeral, he can afford it. I appreciate your concern for James, but he's just fine without your help and without the taxpayers of Keene footing the bill for anything he does. In fact, he's able to produce a lot for the city of Keene, and unfortunately, now he's starting a business that's probably going to benefit Keene as well. I'm happy about it. More Free Staters starting businesses is what I want to see, and people treating each other kindness.